getting better, especially with each of these episodes. Hope you like the new setup. Hope the audio's much crisper this time. Let's hop in, everybody. My name is Carsonus from Creationist, and this is the Filmmaker Focus. We are on episode 17, and this is where we talk about creative direction and, of course, focus. We've got the poll behind me, although we are not going to use that today. We're going to play. We're going to hop on the computer and do something that I should have been doing. And while I am doing it, you're about to find out what it is. I'm going to explain what the show's about because we're getting back to the essentials. After last week, I know I want to change things up. So let's hop onto it. We're on the desktop here now. I am on Adobe Illustrator. And this is a program I am very familiar with. Before I hopped into photography and videography, design is all I did. And I loved it. I tried to make a business out of it. But I realized I'm too passionate about it, and the clients in my area are not willing to pay for the type of quality that I give. So I've taken my focus to my new passion, which is videography. But in my roots, I still got design. And so if you look at right here in the top left, I have, the title screen. And this is something a lot of you are kind of familiar with. Looks like this. And I really like it. I've changed it up. I got rid of the whole poll part because it's just the Filmmaker Focus. I used to call it the Filmmaker Focus poll before I had cards, but I have big plans to make this something a lot more portable, and cards was the best route, plus they're fun to play with, not to eat. Okay, so hopping into Illustrator here, we have each of the 9 elements, and then these are actually the cards that I designed. I created the icons first, and they kind of evolved whenever I decided to make the cards themselves. And so let's just hop into each one. We got the standard Filmmaker Focus right here. This is what the show is about. Like I said, it's creative focus and direction. So we're gonna create a new artboard here, kind of just making it random. Then I'm going to change the width to 1920 by 1080. That's the resolution we are on right now, and that is 1080p. That is full HD. I usually always export them at 4K anyway. But you can create stuff in 1080, just scale it up. My hair light just died, so now I'm kind of blending into the background a little bit more. Anywho, always create it a little bit smaller and plan to export bigger, because on Illustrator, your whole art space is only so big. So you want to make sure you keep things kind of small. It doesn't have to be the smallest, but as I can see right here, if I create another one, if I try to keep it in line, it's not going to work. So I'm going to kind of move these up a little bit. Okay, slide over a few more. Again, we got 9 elements on the Filmmaker Focus. So we're going to slide these. Now, in order to duplicate these, whenever I click and drag on them, I'm holding Alt in order to duplicate. This is pretty much on every Adobe product. If you hold Alt and you're dragging something, it will duplicate it. But as well, I'm holding Shift to keep it nice and parallel. So right there, we've got the title, we got the 9 elements. I think that's it. So thankfully, I've done most of the work here, creating the cards beforehand. So I'm just gonna copy this, slide it on over, checking the live dashboard, seeing if we got anyone on right now. Okay, and now headed to slide over this, again holding Alt, copying this bad boy over. I'm actually gonna Control G to group this. Okay, and then up here you can align to selection or align to artboard. We want to align it to the artboard so that way it will be nice and centered. I can use, this is horizontally aligned, and then of course the other one is vertically align. So now that they are in position, the card is, I'm going to ungroup it. I love keyboard shortcuts. So just like with Control G to group it, it's Control Shift G to ungroup it. Oh, I accidentally pressed Command V. Always press Control Z, that's your best friend. So Control Shift G. We're gonna ungroup this. We're gonna grab this shape right here and we can adjust the side of it. And when doing so, the side is only adjusting the top whenever we're scaling it. So in order to get both sides, the top and bottom, you actually hold Alt, kind of like whenever you were duplicating. So hold Alt and then it will keep everything nice and symmetric. I'm gonna do that again over here. And then with this white one as well. Now I do see this causing an issue because now the white is hidden behind the black. So what I'm gonna do is scale in just slightly, scale down on the black rectangle in order to kind of show the outline of the white. That's one way. That's actually one way, but there's actually another. So headed over to where the color is. This is black, the fill, and then there's a stroke. We're gonna go ahead and choose the stroke. I always like to choose a slight off-white color, personal preference, but we're gonna go over here to stroke, and we're gonna increase that size. And then you're gonna start seeing that outline appear. Although whenever it creates a stroke, by default, it's going both inside and outside of the rectangle. And since the rectangle is on the edge of the artboard, it's not gonna do the result we want. We want it to actually put the stroke on the inside of the shape instead of along the edge, but we don't want it outside either. Like say we were to put it outside, yeah, it looks right. You know, it looks good, but really if you go over here to view, trim view, it's gone. It's not actually on the artboard. So whenever you go to export, you're gonna have issues. So we're gonna disable that trim view. Okay, grab it. We're gonna make the stroke, let's just say 21. That's my age. Oh, there it is, I threw it in there. I was trying to avoid that. Oh well, you guys know how old I am. It's probably not that much of a mystery. Anyway, we got 21 on the stroke. I'm actually not feeling that. I want a little bit more. I kind of want it to match the font that I'm using, which is, if you're wondering, Graphique, and this is a quadruple X condensed. It's the most condensed they have. I just think it was a lot of fun, and I don't know, I just like the look. It's bold, and it just, I don't know, I like narrow fonts. I just always have. I remember doing this one project. This project was for government and economics, and we had to have a whole entire chart of basically how much it costs to, live life. And everyone else had just generic fonts. I know fonts are just whatever, but it really is the personality of the words that you put on there. So, if your writing wasn't enough, you can't really give a bunch of like flair to, numbers and stuff like that. So you choose the font to kind of fill in the gaps. And so I used Oswald, and I thought Oswald was a really good font. If you're on Google, Google Sheets, Google Docs, that sort of stuff, I definitely recommend Oswald. It'll give you a very similar look to this Graphique. Anyway, we are looking at the stroke right now. I bumped it up to 30. Let's just go straight up 30. I think that's looking good. Zoom out, kind of get a different perspective on it. I'm liking it. Okay, so now headed over to the other ones just to make my job a little bit easier. I don't want to keep on rotating all this stuff. I don't want to keep transforming all these shapes, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this black rectangle with the stroke on it, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that along to these other 9 artboards. I'm having a little bit of issues on this one. Boom, we're good. Just kind of have to fine tune it, grab those edges, but make sure you're always holding Alt and Shift. That way everything's nice and parallel. Otherwise, you're going to be creating a mess. Now, for these, it's actually going to be the opposite. So only the title, meaning only the title has a black background. All these others have the white background. So what I can go ahead and do is select all 9, and I'm going to reverse. I'm going to swap the fill and stroke, so it's going to give me that desired effect. And so with the top 3, I have a color scheme for 3 elements, and the top ones are going to be this kind of cyan. Now thankfully I have this located in my libraries, so I'll go ahead and change each of these. Oh, slid that over again. Control Z is your friend. We got the Pantones. I can't remember if I think I'm using the darker red. I'm kind of playing with my reds. I'm still indecisive on exactly what colors I use for everything. It's really hard to choose. There's like lighter and darker shades of the same color, but I think I like it a little more toned back because it gives more emphasis on the cyan, which is my color preference. And so now, in order to get these squares that we have over here, I'm going to figure out the size of these by going over here to transform. It looks like they are 366. Now, I don't know why I chose that. I think that was just a good size for the cards, although my OCD is kicking in. And so I'm going to make them say 360. I believe that's actually a third of the height. So if we're looking at 1080 is, you know, the height of 1920 by 1080, which makes up full HD. If I want a third of that, it's going to be 360. So what I'm going to do here with this rectangle is I'm going to copy and paste. Most of you realize that's Control C. Now, instead of doing Control V, which is going to paste it, you know, wherever the center of my mouse is on the artboard, what I'm going to do instead is Control F. And it looks like it did nothing, but really what it did is it pasted it in the exact same spot. So you can actually see whenever I drag it over, there it is. So now I'm going to change the transform of it, the width and the height, and you want to turn off this constraint. What it is it means whenever you adjust, say, the height to 360, it is now changing the height and the width to be, you know, the same ratio, but we don't want that. We want this to be a square. So what we're going to do is turn that off, and then as well we're going to turn off scale, corners, and strokes, because I don't know if you saw that, but whenever you scale down stuff, it kind of keeps the proportion of that stroke. So in order to have the exact same size stroke, what you have to do is just kind of work around it by turning those off. So Control C, Control F, paste it in place. Now I'm going to change the width to 360, and then as well the height to 360. Okay, and then I'm using the align tool up at the top, going left, going top. Okay, so now we got it in the top left. I'm holding Alt right here. Now I'm not holding Shift because that would kind of limit me to 45 degrees, and since my artboard is not a perfect square, it's not going to work. So just hold Alt because you're duplicating it, and then there it is. We've got it right there. Now I know this first part of, you know, this live stream is a tutorial, although I will get to what each element is. But if you're not familiar with Illustrator at the moment, I mean, this is really the best way if you want to learn a lot right now. So I copied them over to the next artboard, and we only see the outline right now, and that is actually because it is in a layer beneath. I'm pretty bad. I'm not that organized whenever it comes to layers. I know I should be creating each layer for, you know, each project and, you know, each time I make a new design, although that's just not me. I like it to be a little messy, and that's just because I kind of move stuff and play off of it in different directions. You don't want to see my other artboards. They're crazy. They're crazy. But anyway, since we have these hidden below the layer, we want to bring it up. And in order to do so, it is Command Shift, and then you got your bracket right. And that'll bring it to the top. And vice versa, if you bring it, if you want to bring it to the back, it'll be Control Shift left bracket. But we're going to go right bracket. Okay, there we are. And then again, we're going to copy this over to all 9 of these. This is whenever I wish I could do a time lapse. I'd say I'm fairly quick at Illustrator, but this can definitely be a bit mundane. But we're about to hop into what each of these mean. Okay, so now I've got all of these cyan boxes with outlines. I don't want them all to be cyan. I want them to match the colors of the background. So I'm going to go to this next row, the yellow, and I'm going to use the eye tool, which is the eyedropper, and click on the yellow rectangle. And what that's going to do is basically take all of the objects that I selected, and it's going to now mimic whatever I click on, which is going to be that yellow outline. And then I will do the same to the red, and bada boom, bada bing. I'm just going to Control S, save your work. You never know whenever something bad could happen, and it's just good security. Now, the only thing I am noticing now is with these designs, I did actually put a black background on these outside cubes. So what we're going to do is going to have to select each. Actually, just to make this easier on myself, I'm going to select everything, and then I'm going to deselect the bigger rectangles. It'll be less clicking in the end. You just got to start to think what is going to be the quickest route. There's many routes to each solution. You just got to figure out what you're willing to spend your time on. So now I selected everything, and then I deselected all the big rectangles. So now I only have the small squares. So now I'm going to change the fill to black. Boom, just like that. Okay. Again, a nice Control S. It's starting to get more of that look I'm going for. And now I'm going to copy over the logo I have. And it should go ahead. Yeah, you know, you see having your guides on is going to greatly help the effect of copying everything over. You can actually see I messed up and forgot to hold Alt. So it actually moved it over instead of copying it. So I'm just going to Control Z, that way I can get it back. And this time I'll hold Alt, not Shift, because you only hold Shift whenever you go in parallel. There we go. You just want to make sure you're always copying to the center. And now that we did it, you know, to the top 3, we can grab those 3 and then just copy them over. I guess you could do one at a time, but we're trying to save time. And the fact that I'm on a live stream right now is really adding some pressure, which is good. I like some pressure. All right, so now that I have the basic cards, well, these are not going to be cards. These are actually going to be the slideshows like I had before with these, although those are all the old names because I changed everything to be verbs, because these are things to do. That's what the Filmmaker Focus is me checking my focus and setting this week's notions to be next week's motions, kind of vice versa too. So now that we have these down, we got capture. Capture is number 1, and what capture is I'm noticing a few issues. Anyway, I'll figure this out. Anyway, what capture is just essentially get it. No matter what, you can't create any type of work whenever it comes to film if you're not capturing something, capturing ideas as in writing, pictures as references, just any type of research. Make sure to capture it. Now what I'm doing, since I put these on each of the corners, I'm noticing the P's getting cut off. So what I'm going to do is hold Shift and arrow key it couple times, maybe 3 times. 3 looks like the sweet spot. I know it gets cut off a little bit, but I'm okay with that. The reason I'm holding shift is because it's just bigger jumps. It's actually 5 pixels instead of the 1 if you were just hitting those arrow keys. So yeah, just make sure to capture it. I've been doing a lot of capturing with my drone lately. I've been having tons of fun with that. I really have not been using my drone like I've wanted to, and I actually built a drone in high school, and that was such a fun time. Like, it was an amazing experience, and it's one of the biggest things I miss about high school was being in that pre-engineering class. Now, I don't care to be an engineer now, but I loved just that thought process. Having, you know, dates and, you know, I had to do all this research. I liked that aspect of it. I like the pressure and, you know, the assignments, all the organization that goes into it. I mean, you're given a syllabus, you know what's expected, and you do it. And that's what I like. There's that accountability there whenever it comes to school. So that's what I've been doing, is shooting a lot with a drone, because I do plan on building yet another drone, and it's going to be more towards the FPV style. I have all the parts of my old drone, although that drone was, I think it was about 24 inches and it weighed 2.5 pounds. So not really ideal for FPV, especially if you're trying to go into tight spaces. It's just not going to work at all. But, you know, I'm going to innovate. I'm going to see what I can use from that project. And that leads to the next element on the Filmmaker Focus is use what you already have, innovate, improvise, do what you can with what you got. And for the longest time, I've had a terrible mic. I've had, no joke, a $12 mic for this show. And it's not because I hate you guys. It's just audio is not the main, I mean, it should be one of the main focuses, but as a visual person, you kind of push that stuff aside. I mean, you care about lenses, light, you know, the whole 9 yards in that sense of, you know, directing photography. But I'm not an audio guy. But I innovated for so long using what I have and, you know, rigging up some fun stuff. But, you know, it's ready and it's time for me to, you know, progress. And I finally got a shotgun mic, which I will do a video on. But I want to get some real experience with it. This is actually the first time I'm using it in this setting. I've used it a couple times, but that was just kind of testing on some headphones, going around the house. And it was a fun time. It sounds beautiful, absolutely beautiful, especially compared to this little micro, whoa, we went off. What happened? Okay, that was odd. We just went offline for a second. I guess my internet's not as good as I thought it was. Although we do have someone watching. Thank you for watching. Hey guys, I do appreciate it. Right now we've, you know, created on Illustrator the slides. We've moved them from the card design and then made them into the slides. If you want to watch this, say after for the tutorial. If you care to learn Illustrator, it's definitely a great way. Although we're kind of done with the tutorial side, I'm just talking about what each element means and kind of the things I've been doing with each one this past week or two, because let's be honest, last week was not a real episode. Not too proud of that one, but you know, I still got it out to you guys, and you know, I created. And that brings to the next element, which is create. This used to actually be creativity, and that's just kind of tied in with originality. I'm trying to come up with something for Halloween, and I see so many examples out there, but I'm trying to just make something completely original. And that's so hard because so many things in the film industry have already been done. But I'm not going to neglect it. They say, you know, good artists steal, great artists steal from many sources. And so, you know, kind of giving your own take, what you like, is ultimately going to make that original, because you're making these crazy things combine. And that's what I just love about film or design or anything, is just like, you can take these wild ideas. Like I can take an idea from like what I had unicycling and mix it with some skit idea, and then like say I was eating Skittles and I'm like, oh, rainbow. Like just randomness goes through your mind and you make these crazy connections, and creating those connections is what ultimately makes it original. So go out there and create. And so next we have view, and view is perspective. I've had quite a bit of perspective change this summer. Wow. I've dealt with a few clients, both good and bad. I won't list any names, but I did get SD cards stolen. Kind of just bit the bullet on that. It wasn't too bad, but it definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. Although now I'm flying my drone and I'm feeling sky high again. So, you know, time is the best healer. Just change your view a little bit. There's a good side. All right, and so listening, I've noticed a lot, especially with this live stream. If I'm listening to music, I know this is kind of like not really filmmaking. You know, I'm going to tie it in. So with listening, I think if you listen to some type of music during the creative process, one, you're going to feel like you're in the groove, and two, you're kind of letting out your emotions through your work. And that's where you really start, again, getting that originality. Sorry guys, I'm doing some mundane tasks, just sliding over these letters. This is work I should be doing, you know, aside, but you know, I'm having fun showing y'all a little bit of how the process is with design. I've made no videos about it. But yeah, listen to something. I've noticed it's really easy for myself. I'm sure there's others out there like me. I can't speak right now. It's 9:30. I should have done this two hours ago. But that's aside the point. I am here, and 2 nights ago, it was probably about 9:30 as well, I was with my friend Ta. Shout out to Ta. He was in my halfway video to 50 subscribers. I'm not going to talk about what happened with 100 subscribers video. You know, that'll be in the future. But we were listening to music for this contest on artlist.io. And artlist.io is a service that I use for all my commercial music. They have some sound effects. I don't know, kind of scores is what I like on there. And they had a Halloween section because they want you to, you know, make this short film using their music. And I do plan on doing that. I'm going to kind of tie in the idea that I have for a short, and I'm going to use their music to kind of score it, kind of give the vibe. Shout out to Hans Zimmerman. I think it's Hans Zimmer. It's just Hans Zimmer. Again, not an audio guy, but the scores are what really make these haunted, you know, horror films. And they have a lot of great stuff on there. But what I was saying with listening is I was noticing that as I listen to the scores, just I can create that scene. I can think, I'm in this place. I'm doing this. This is happening. The character is feeling this emotion because this happened. And that's the great thing about music, is being able to incorporate a scene in your head just by hearing something. And it's all independent because, you know, you're just kind of in a daydreaming sense. And so listen to more music whenever you're thinking about creating mood boards, whenever you're writing. Obviously, whenever you're writing, choose instrumental only or you will have a hard time. I've experienced that myself. But yeah, listen to more music in the process. It's a lot of fun. And next we have lighting, or what I say light, because light is a verb, lighting is noun, a noun. I can't even speak. And so with lighting, you could see that lighting earlier kind of passed off me. It wasn't doing too much. It was just a hair light. But lighting is what creates depth. hands down. If you want something to not look as flat, add more contrast, because contrast isn't just popping colors, it's creating more juxtaposition in the highlights and in the shadows. You're creating the light and you're making it more intense, and that intensity is what just gives that depth. And I mean, obviously the way you frame your shot compositionally is going to affect that as well, but I have a big softbox right here, and it is creating shadows on my face and on my chin that make me just kind of pop out more, opposed to if I just put the light right in front of my face. So lighting is what creates depth, and it also lighting is what chooses the mood. So I think once you choose what you're listening to and you know how you want the scene to feel, lighting is going to play one of the most important parts, because you got to think at the end of the day, yeah, music is very important, but if you're playing some scary music and it's a full bright ass day, trust me, the spookiness is not going to get aside. I mean, that's being very general. It can still be presented in the right sense, but lighting is going to be a key element to kind of work together with what they're listening to. And so make sure you have the right colors in there with your lighting, and as well you have the right lumosity, meaning the intensity of your light. I keep it pretty bright over here because I'm the main subject, and then off in the background it's a little dimmer because I don't want you all, dozing off back there. I know it looks great. I got a new little seat over there. Not really showing it off. I'm typically sitting on the sofa, but I wanted to be a little bit more comfortable in a different sense, and that's with my design. And so we're headed down to the last 3 elements. We have process. Process is the next. Wow. And process is something that's always evolving. And as soon as you think it's stopped evolving, it evolved a little bit more. And that's kind of how it should be. The process is the evolution of how you do what you do. It's, again, what makes you unique. And that process is something that I'm constantly finding myself kind of fighting for and against at the same time, if that makes any sense. Process is important. Just make sure to be open-minded. That's something I struggle with myself, You ever feel like you know it all and then you don't? And it's because I find myself not open-minded enough, and so I get caught up in my own process, my own method to my madness, and sometimes it's more madness than it is method, but that's just part of the process. And so next we have preparation, which is a really fun part of the process, you could say. That was sarcasm if you didn't pick that up. Preparation is never fun, but it's needed. Whenever people make films, oh, sorry, I just hit that. Whenever people make films, you have to have preparation. You have to have plenty of it, because there's pre-production, production, and post-production. And no one's going to like your idea if there's no preparation behind it. So, write down your ideas. That's going to make you, kind of make it more accountable. So prepare. Yeah. The more you prep, okay, let me just say this. The more you prep, the better you'll feel, but you can't hold on to it like it's going to happen, because you don't know the future. And just be okay with a little bit of flexibility, because you're going to need it. But for getting batteries and SD cards, if you're doing that, you need to work on your preparation. I say that from experience many times, even recently. And preparation is usually at the top of my focus. And headed over to the last part. I'm going to fix this music situation. It got quiet in here. Artlist stopped auto-populating. Here we go. This is Doorknob by Egan Stone, if you can hear it. I need something to design to. I got to listen for that creative process. So last but not least, we have support. And support is originally on the Filmmaker Focus, support was the support for the camera, meaning monopod, tripod, gimbal, glide cam, you know, the way it feels. Because I believe support changes the emotion of whatever's being viewed. So, I mean, if you have a running scene, you obviously don't want it to just seem like, you know, a tripod just sliding on over. You don't get that grittiness. I mean, someone's running, say for their dear life. It's Halloween time. You know, you want that camera to shake. And the way you support it is going to ultimately change how the viewer feels. Because you have different elements. I mean, you got different senses in your video. You got lighting, which is the visual. You got listening, which is, you know, the ears. Oh, lighting the eyes, listening the ears. And then for your support, that's kind of the feeling. They can't actually feel your film, but if you're shaking it around, that's giving them a sense of what you mean. If you're moving the camera really slow and romantic, they're gonna kind of feel that. And they don't know why, because not everyone's kind of, you know, paying attention, but it's there. And so the way you support your films is ultimately how the viewer is going to feel in your video. And as well, I've kind of shifted support not only to, you know, the way the camera's supported, but how you as an individual are supported. What does your support look like? Your family, your friends, your collaborators, what do they look like? Are they bringing you up? Are they helping you? You need to have a strong support in order to continue this career, because like I've said before, I've really noticed it, is that you can't do this alone. You can't. I think I've actually had this on myself the whole time. If you were trying to watch the tutorial, I'm sorry. I've not been paying attention to that top left. I do have 2 monitors. Using that TV innovation, have a strong support. Find people who bring out the best in you, because ultimately those are the people you can keep for your life. I've still had the same friends for 6 years, and you know, whenever I show them my creative outlets, there's no judgment, and that's what you need. You need that type of, even if it's not fellowship, you need friendship, and your support is everything. In order to get yourself out there and to build your films to the greatness that they have the potential to be, you do need this support. And so I'm going to leave the sliding over these icons. All I'm going to do is essentially copy and paste them. I'm going to leave that to myself. I'm not going to make you watch any more mundane stuff. So this is going to conclude episode 17 of the Filmmaker Focus. We're looking at a lapse time of, how long are we at now? 38 minutes. This is definitely the longest one yet, although there was a tutorial thrown in. Again, if you came late and you want to watch how to use Adobe Illustrator, just hit rewind and I've got it all there. If you want any more advice on how to use Illustrator, let me know. I don't do design tutorials right now, but I definitely can for you guys. I'm trying to find what I like to put out on YouTube, and I'm starting to find out that a lot of the drone stuff, I kind of just like doing practice right now, because I don't feel like it's good enough yet. And that's not because I don't think I'm good. It's just I want to be great. I want to show y'all what all the hours of practice really show out to be. So make sure to create connections and surround yourself with ideas that inspire. This has been Carsonus from Creationist, and I will catch you guys next week on Tuesday. Again, I like to do this show typically around 6 to 8, but bear with me. If I didn't make it, I'm going to try to make it by the end of the night. Peace.